Hello and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 25th of May 2014 and we've had a little bit of few minute panic before the show started. Unfortunately, the guest that we were planning to have on, a chap called Piers Corbin from weatheraction.com, for some reason he's gone AWOL. Probably a bit like the weather, unpredictable I think. This is the second time we've tried to get Piers on the show, and we did contact him during the week and just reminded him that the show would be on Sunday, so I don't know what's happened there. But anyway, we have as good a guest on. We've got Harry from We the People. That we wanted to get Harry on the show anyway. We were planning to get Harry on to have a chat to him about the law and other things that happened during the week, which we are going to tell you about. So it's quite convenient that we got Harry on, so that's brilliant. So we'll be bringing Harry on in about 10 or 15 minutes. As usual, we have a few things to talk about. But before we do anything, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, before we find out what the communication channels are, we want to just apologise to people listening to us, or should I say not listening to us, on People's Internet Radio. We're having problems with the stream. We have contacted their people to see if somebody can restream, but we're having technical issues our end here. So not sure how long that will take to get sorted. But in the meantime, yes, communication channels, please. Mary.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
046 927 1212 is the phone number here at OYMradio.com. If you want to ring in from outside the Republic of Ireland, it's 00353 469 271212. And we also have the People's Internet Radio chat room, which will be loaded up, and the OYM Radio chat room as well. So if you have any questions for our guest this evening, who will be Harry, as Alan said, you can post them in there and we'll throw them over to Harry. Alan.
Brilliant stuff. Alright, Chris.
Chris?
Chris.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Only Chris on the weekend, alright?
Delete that out of the podcast, please.
I will do, okay. As I said, the guest that we were supposed to have on was a chap called Piers Corbin regarding weatheraction.com. That's where he works. He set that up. But unfortunately, this is the second time we've asked Piers to come on, and he hasn't come on. I don't know why. But anyway, we have Harry as a guest on, which is going to be great. So we'll get Harry on in a few minutes. But there's a few things, as usual, that we have to actually go through and talk about things that happened during the week, and a few good things I have to say as well. I'd just like to remind the listeners that we have OEM t-shirts and stickers available to purchase through the OEM shop there, just to help support us. And obviously books, how the banks are screwing you and what you can do about it, they're available as well, so don't forget that. And it just helps support us in what we do. And
you're selling some of your lingerie as well, I believe.
Yeah, well,
your winter collection.
My winter collection, yeah. My winter, summer, autumn, spring collection, because I can't afford to buy clothes. But the first thing on the list is obviously everything that's been going on in Ireland, really, is the voting and the election. And what do you think, Steve?
It's been an interesting kind of weekend, yeah, because people were hitting the polls, and there's a lot of information floating around. There's information coming out on the national media station RTE, Rothschild's Trivial Entertainment, as Mick from Liffey Sound refers to it. I think I agree with him. Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of people being able to predict who was going to get elected before the ballot boxes were even open. But RTE seemed to have this thing called an exit poll. I have no idea what an exit poll is. I asked a couple of people and I got kind of blank stares. They didn't know what an exit poll was. So I'm not 100% sure if it's something to do with maybe Gay Byrne or Pat Kenny doing remote viewing into these election boxes. But they were able to kind of say that before the boxes were open, in their exit poll, one of the Fine Gael candidates was sure of a seat. Was definitely that was taken as a given. They got a seat. Luke Ming Flanagan has been doing quite well as well. Sinn Féin have really rocked the boat this time. It hasn't happened before. It's unbelievable that Sinn Féin, who've been around since ever, beginning of time as far as I know, have done so well. Now, I'm not sure if it's genuine, to be totally honest, because I've heard some people saying that the whole thing looks like it may be rigged, because. Excuse me. They've done so well. they've been kind of talking about if they are in the next government that there may be some talk of a coalition. Someone even mentioned a coalition with Fine Gael. Now Fine Gael are the ones who have us in this mess at the moment. Excuse me, they didn't cause it, but they kept us in it. Them and Labour with Eamon Gilmore. And Eamon Gilmore, I don't know if you've seen it, Alan. He was actually interviewed last night, and he was asked, what's his kind of his thoughts on the fact that Labour had done so badly. And he, would he be maybe stepping down as the leader of the Labour Party? And he stood there on camera and he said, "I'm the leader of the Labour Party, and that's not going to change." And I almost believe the guy. He believes his own BS.
I think he left something there. He said, "I'm the leader of the Labour Party, and I have a massive ego, and I'm not going to step down."
Yeah,
that's
exactly,
what he left out.
And even one of his cohorts, Joan Burton or Bruton or whatever her name is. She was asked as well, would she comment, and she wouldn't comment, and even that other, your mate, Mr. Rabbit, caught in the headlights, Pat, even he was, he was being interviewed as well, and he was just coming out with singing his own praises too. The people have spoken, and this government, we have difficult times ahead, and we're going to have to, kind of regroup and rethink and re-engineer and renegotiate and all this bull excrement.
As you say, you should never listen to your own PR, because that's what PR is.
Yeah.
To hype you up a bit, to something that you're not.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea. So, I mean, we all know these politicians. We know what they're like. Massive egos, power hungry, megalomaniacs. So, at the end of the day, goodbye. I mean, I'd like to think this is the start of something changing. The revolution starting, where people are saying, that's enough. We've had, we want to get rid of this service to self and more service to others. That's the way society should be. The rising of consciousness with people waking up and realising what's going on, and this greed that's going on. So it has to change.
It does, yeah. But from what they were saying too, only 51% of the electorate actually bothered getting up off their backsides and going out to vote, which is a shame. I mean, I know people kind of think that it's the whole voting thing is a waste of time, and maybe it is. I don't know. I'm still not kind of convinced that it is a democracy. I'm still not convinced that the counts are correct. I don't know if there's any, underhanded, sleight of hand tricks going on there in counting these votes. I genuinely don't know. No, none of us do. But I think that whether it matters or not, you should, the 51% who did bother get up off the backside, fair play. But the 49% who didn't should be ashamed of themselves. Unless maybe, I could be wrong, but maybe some of those 49% are those who Labour got jobs for in Canada. Maybe that's why they weren't voting, because they're probably not in the country. But I was quite surprised, because I was watching some of the information on the TV, and I thought that I would have heard mention of DDI or Ben or Tom or any of them, but nothing, not a mention. They're not there. They've been thrown in with the independents. Well,
there was a statement. There are a few people out there who obviously didn't vote, and they had their reasons why they didn't vote. I find that kind of disrespectful, to be honest with you, because our forefathers died to give us this ability to vote. Yes, we might seem that the voting system might be rigged, but to be honest with you, just take a look at what happened across these local elections. A lot of the seats held by these parasite mainstream parties have been lost, and maybe this is the step in the right direction. And being an armchair politician is not going to win you any prizes, and you can't moan them out. Now, the only other way that you can get rid of the government is to go into the Dáil with an AK-47, which I don't recommend. We don't condone violence. So the only way you're going to do it is to vote. And if you don't vote, then that means that the party that's going to benefit the parasite parties that are in there at the moment. So use your vote. I mean, people should use their vote and go in. And even if you vote an independent, it doesn't matter. Just use it and make yourself, stand up and be counted. Really, that's what it's all about. So, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what goes on, and I think they're still doing the count anyway, so we're still finding out.
Yeah,
we know Ming's in Europe anyway, so that's good. There's going to be a fighter in Europe for Ireland, and he'll be giving them hell over there. So
let's hope so. Thing. Let's send him some good wishes and hope he delivers.
I think he will. I think he will do the job. But we'll actually touch base with Harry and just get his opinion on it as well. And see what he thinks.
Maybe at some stage you might even get Ming the man himself on.
Yeah, well, the request has been sent in to Mr. Ming. So so we'll see how we get on. Right, okay, just moving on. Last week we had Gordon James again in Oto on, and A few people, just some people liked what he said. Other people felt that he might be a little bit way out there. Again, it depends on your path of knowledge and where you are on that, and what you're willing to accept, or how much you know about what's going on. You can please some people, but you can't please everybody. But that's just the way it is. We like getting guests on that mix it up a bit and give their opinion on what they see and their experiences. Now, obviously, we haven't experienced anything like Gordon, so we'll be just firmly sitting on the fence until we have our own experiences, whenever that's going to be. But one of the things Gordon said, and he refers to Zeta Talk Nancy Leader, was about the flooding. And during the week, one of our listeners, Kim, sent over a link to the Santus Germanus Prophecies version 2 on page 51. Now, we did send this web link out to our registered users so you can look at the PDF. But the part I'm just going to read regarding the rising of the waters, which is what's being predicted. We were hoping to speak to Piers Corbyn about this, actually, because what he agrees with, he said global warming is all a farce, it's all a fallacy. We're getting colder, we're going to go into a mini ice age. That's his thinking. And it says here that despite the massive losses along the coastal and low-lying regions, many high elevation urban and rural regions will likely survive the floods intact. An estimated 20 to 30% of the world's population now inhabits higher elevation regions over 100 metres, 300 feet, above present sea level. Although we expect levels to rise another 50 to 80 metres, the seas will continue to be turbulent, with storms battering the new and higher coastlines before the new weather system settles in. Urban areas located on a high plateau surrounded by fertile land and with a good supply of fresh groundwater will survive. These plateaus should be higher than larger lakes and other water bodies. Mountainous river valleys or narrow ravines and canyons where flash flooding can take place will be ravaged by melting permafrost, causing rivers to swell and temporarily flood these areas. Most of these high elevation regions can be found in the foothills of major mountain ranges. Except for some Pacific and Caribbean islands and atolls, most countries with coastal areas have highland and mountainous regions. Bearing earthquakes in these regions sitting between tectonic plates and the success of the dark forces in spreading pandemic diseases, the higher elevation areas should afford safety for millions of people. So this was in the kind of Santus Germanus Prophecies version 2, page 51 that is. So if you Google it, you'll actually find it. It's a PDF and you can read the whole lot. But that was actually in the prophecy, away from what's being predicted. And if the likes of Piers Corbyn and Weather Action are predicting that there's going to be a global cooling, and Stuart Stridlow also predicts, he said the same thing, that we're going to go into a mini ice age, and I'm sure there's a lot more people out there talking about the same thing and saying the same thing, then chances are we might be going down that way. You never know. So we just have to keep an eye on things, and if you're anywhere near the coast, try and kind of have if the coastal areas start, if the water starts increasing, try and have a plan B in mind of somewhere to go. I think that would be the best way. If nothing happens, then you don't have to worry about it. But it's always good having a plan B.
Have a fast car or a boat.
Yeah, one of the other. That's what Gordon said.
Fast boat.
Build a boat. Yeah. How's your week, Steve?
Look, my week's been the same as every other week. It's absolutely nothing exciting at all this week. I've just been kind of interacting with people. Like the line of work that I'm in, I kind of meet a lot of interesting people who drive trucks, and I've been kind of just touching base with them and just discussing, because I mean the hot topic this week has been the elections, and without covering all ground again, I was just touching base with people and just asking them, not even asking them who you're voting for, but asking them kind of who do they reckon has a chance. And most people who I spoke with said Labour is definitely gone. They're so gone, it's going to be unbelievable. And everyone kind of said that. Actually, a lot of people thought that Fine Gael was going to do quite badly as well. And again, they didn't do as bad as well. They're probably done a lot worse than they thought, but they didn't do that bad in the great scheme of things. They did kind of get a lot of votes, and some of them actually had seats and held on to those seats, which is kind of surprising. Well, it surprised me, and I was kind of just I was using that kind of conversation piece, if you like, just asking them what they thought, to kind of introduce them to maybe some of the independents, because a lot of them didn't know what way they were going to vote. And that's okay. You know, there are people who just hadn't got a clue, and they just kind of figured, that doesn't matter, as someone just posted on the chat, it doesn't matter who you vote for, the government always wins, and that is true. But, you know, I was just saying to them, well, if you give some of the independents a chance, like there's a lot of good independents out there who are, like, they're non-party, they're just, you know, honest to goodness people who want to do the right thing. And I was mentioning a few names, like, say, was it Mark Fitzsimons, Ming Flanagan, and I mentioned, for the people who, say, because I'm in Dublin, I was mentioning Tom Darcy and DDI. And it's amazing because, obviously because of what we do and the people who we speak with, we would kind of think that Tom Darcy would be a big name, Ben Gilroy would be a big name, and DDI would be a well-known party. But it's amazing the amount of people, when you speak to, they kind of go, DD who?
Yeah.
They genuinely hadn't got a clue. And
the other thing that I come across is that because people are so conditioned to the way the political system works, they don't know what direct democracy is as a process.
Yeah.
And then, so they keep saying, oh, it doesn't matter who you vote, it's all the same. And I'm going, well, no. Do you understand what direct democracy is? And they go, well, no, I don't know what that is. And you think, well, let me explain it to you. And then when you explain it to them, they go, that's actually a good idea.
Well, that's exactly what happened to me during the week. There was a couple of people who, they didn't know about it, and when I explained the whole process to them, they looked at me and said, that sounds too good to be true. And I said, well, from what we've heard, that was in the original Irish Constitution, and, you know, there are people who want to get it back. So it is putting the power back in the hands of the people and taking it out of the corrupt politicians. But, you know, they thought it was a good idea, but did they go out and vote for it? I don't know. I haven't a clue. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that was really my week. I haven't been looking at too much of anything else, really. Just kind of, you know, just keeping an eye on that, educating people. And, you know, there's a few other things at home as well, but, you know, that's really it in a nutshell so far. How was your week?
All right.
I know you had an exciting week.
Oh, I had a good week. We had a good week. And we'll be talking to Harry about it as well when we get Harry in there in a few minutes. I just want to say one thing that Ben said a long time ago, and I just want to reiterate what he said. DDI is not offering they're not saying that they have all the answers. But as Ben said, if you're on the Titanic and somebody pulls up in a rowboat, you take the chance because that's the only chance you have, you know, and there's no guarantee that you'll still survive, but you'll have a better chance, you know, jumping on the rowboat than staying on the Titanic. Now, as I say, we're not saying direct democracy is the be-all and end-all and that's it, but it's better than what we have. It's a starter. Let's start from there and then let's develop it and let's grow it. That's why, you know, I think direct democracy as a process is a good thing. It's a good step in the right direction, but there might need, you know, changing down the road. There might need a little bit of tweaking. But we have to give the power back to the people. It's simple as that. Away from the hands of the government. And then we can hone it, we can change it and do what we need to do with it. And so that's just my own personal opinion on you, but I think Ben was on the money. You know, if you're on the Titanic and somebody pulls up in your own boat, there's no guarantee you're going to survive, but it's a chance that you take. Simple as that. Now, the other thing during the week, apparently Reactor 4 in Fukushima has gone off, and there's a 30-mile no-fly zone around Fukushima, meltdown fears, radiation leaks, etc. So I think, you know, I mean, this is nearly 3 years or so that Fukushima has been spurring out radiation. And we're just going to have to be careful watching that. I mean, off the west coast of America and California, there's people walking on the beach with Geiger counters picking up radiation levels over there. So I think we just have to keep an eye on that and remember that that's happening and that's going into the oceans. Look, there's not much we can do about it, but yeah, at least be aware of it and, you know, let you know what's going on. And the last thing on the list before we get Harry in is some of you might have heard me say before, but I'm living in a new estate and it hasn't been handed over to the council.
So it's like one of the unfinished ghost estates, as they call them. Well,
yeah, it's kind of enough. There's about 7 or 8 houses for sale here. I mean, there's a bit of work needs to be done. The roads need to be done. A few other things need to be done. And so there's a 12-year period, but if residents demand demand that they can bring it down to a 10. Now, so I'm on an estate that's private property. It's not been handed to the council, so it's private property. So on Thursday, we have these guys turning up from Irish Water, wanting to put the actual meters in, the water meters in. So I went out to the boss of the place, and I just said, look, I said, this is private property, and you shouldn't be on here. It's not been handed out to the council, so you've no right to be here. So I'm revoking your right of access to the property, to this estate, and just leave, pack up, get your workmen, and just leave. And of course,
did he pack up and leave?
No, he didn't, because as usual, these guys are brain dead and they have a job to do and all that. They just don't understand it. So I said, okay, fair enough. These guys don't know what's going on. So they just carried on and they just completely ignored me. So I said, okay, I'm not going to speak to the monkey. I'm going to speak to the organ grinder. So I rang up Irish Water and I recorded the conversation, told them that it was being recorded for training and quality purposes, and spoke to a nice chap there, and I just explained to him very easy, very calmly, and it's recorded, this phone call is recorded, basically that this was private property that hadn't been handed up to the council, and they were trespassing, and their implied right of access has been revoked, and could you please tell your workmen to leave the estate as soon as possible. So he said, well, we need your details, and I said, well, here's the house I live in. And he said, and I said, well, you can call me Mr. B if you want. So just for a bit of fun. And he said, no, we just need your address, that's all. And I said, well, that's fine. He said, okay, we're going to process that. So, and he read me the Data Protection Act. Obviously, something got to do with maybe putting it on YouTube, I don't know. Funny that when I rang up ESB and did the same thing about the smart meters, they read me the Data Protection Act there as well. So, so anyway, it comes Friday morning. And I see this big truck turn up with the digger and everything else on the back of it, and I see a van turn up, and I thought, okay, well, they're obviously not gonna, they're gonna ignore the phone call as well. And these two guys start chatting away, and 15 minutes later, they turn around and they leave the estate, and no work is carried out whatsoever for the whole day. Nobody comes back to the estate. So I pop around, and they had some of the work done already from the day before. They had, shores dug up, and I think there was cement put down and stuff, but all the shores were not done, because I went along with my screwdriver and checked some of the shores, and there was meters not installed. And then on Saturday morning, one of the vans turned up, took the barriers, all the barriers and all the kind of paraphernalia, and just drove off Saturday morning, and we haven't seen them since. Now, their plan of attack was to do the install over 4 days, if not 3 days. But they only did 1 day and maybe a little bit. I'd say really 1 day. They got the crooks done, most of it done. Well, so we got some houses done in the 1 day.
But they didn't, the fact that they now know it's an unfinished estate and they shouldn't be here, and as someone just posted up on the chat, I think it was Chris, that they're not insured to be there because the estate hasn't been handed over. And the fact that they've put the meters in, did they come back and unfit the meters that they've already fitted?
No, the meters, what they did is they just when they finished off what they had to do, like take out the barriers and you know.
Yeah.
So because of health and safety, they obviously had to put the cement down, but they just left. So I went around and I checked a few shores and there's no meters in them. So they basically just took the tools, finished off and left on Saturday morning, and then that was it.
And can you just mention to people as well that when you and I hooked up on Skype during the week, they actually had a meter outside. You took a short video of the meter showing all around it and the make and model and the all take from all sides. And tell people about the meter. Well, in the fact that like they're saying that they're not smart meters.
Yeah, well, they are smart meters, because myself and Steve went on the internet and we checked out this model, and there's like an antenna on the end of it. So it's definitely a smart meter. And because the whole idea of these meters is that the guy pulls up in his car, and each meter will have a specific ID, and the guy will actually read that meter from the information. And the meters that are installed, I had a look at them, and they're actually working, they're clocking the water, because the digits have changed. But I was really concerned, in all honesty. I just didn't want a meter, simple as that, in my house. The bonus is that everybody else kind of benefited from what I did. is, you know, it's great, but I was just kind of concerned about, I don't want a meter. Now, I want to bring Harry in because I don't want to leave him out in the cold. But I want to talk to Harry about this because there's another side to this regarding property. And for people living in estates that's not being handed over, it might be of interest to them. So before we go any further, we'll bring Harry in. Good evening, Harry. How are you doing?
How you doing? Can you hear us?
Yeah, listen, thanks a lot for coming on. I know it was a very last minute thing, so we appreciate you, because I did say to you when we talked off air a couple of weeks ago, I did say to you that, look, we're going to have to get you back on and have a talk about a few things. And so maybe this was a synchronicity. Maybe it was meant to happen. But while we're on the subject of the water meters, we'll talk to you about the election later. But while we're on the talk about the water meters, you heard us obviously talking about the implied right of access. What's your take on that? Give us your heads up on that.
I think that's great. Well, thanks for having us on. I was actually I was popping around the house and was about to write a letter to the Dublin City Council on that particular matter. But that's great that you may have had some type of success by the sound of it. But it was great success in Togher in County Cork in the past 2 weeks, because the people down in Togher, what they've done, they've put a lot of notices up, no implied right of access here to install water meters, and they actually took the water meters out. And they're gone. They've been actually removed.
What, the people took them out?
Oh no, the council or the contractors that the council had employed.
Yeah.
They actually took them out because the people didn't volunteer to comply. You know, and it's all about, as you know yourselves, about voluntary compliance.
Of course. Yeah.
You know, and obviously, if people are aware of the simple fact, and the system knows that people are aware of the simple fact, they don't have a contract. They can't contract legally or lawfully to put these things in. And you know, this has had great success in Cork. So if enough people do this, and you know, Cork rang me today because you know we're all involved in this, and they said according to some statistics from the States, only 18% of the people in Ireland have actually complied to pay any of these charges. So, you know, people, the whole government here are continuously lying to the people, even on statistics, just to convince people that this is the thing to do, when it's clearly not. Well, it's only 18%, yeah, according to this report from America, 18% of the people have actually paid anything for these charges, you know?
Yeah.
So at least there's only 18% of vegetables out there in Ireland. The rest of the people, I hope at this stage, have awoken to the simple facts, you know, of mass peaceful non-compliance is the way to go.
Definitely,
Yeah.
well, definitely. And here's the other thing with it as well. I was speaking to Vin yesterday, actually, because I'm in an estate that's now private property. It hasn't been handed over to the council. And the developer, his business has gone into, it was dissolved in 2010. And I know the council have sent to him an enforcement notice to finish off the estate, because there's about 11 things that need to be done. One of them is the road. And he's, you know, him being him, I know the person personally because we dealt with him when we got the house. He probably just, you know, sticking his two fingers up at the council and saying, I'm not going to bother because my business is gone, so there's no such thing as that company anymore. So does either the council will take it on for whatever reason and pay the fee to finish it, or else they'll just chase him and it will be in limbo. And as long as it's in limbo, I don't mind, because it means we don't have the hassle. But here's the other thing that's very important. If you are in an estate that hasn't been handed over to the council, see, I was parking my car over the drive, right? Because I know I turned around to the guys and said, look, there was a guy literally next door, he was checking the shore, and I went out to him and I said, you're not going to be putting a meter in my place, your implied right of access has been removed. And he probably thought I was speaking Russian, you know, because they don't get it, they don't understand it. So I parked my car over the shore to make sure, and I had a notice, which I got off your video, by the way, thanks for that, Harry. I copied the video that you'd done. I copied the notice that you had up there, and I put it outside the house. just to let them know, and it's still there at the moment. But I parked the car on the drive, just over the shore, just to make sure he didn't try and chance his arm. Now, obviously, I got a message to Facebook from a person myself and Steve now, and he said, Alan, be careful, because if PC Plod comes along, you could be fined or your car could be removed for obstructing the path. Now, yes, if you weighed 25 stone, you would have trouble getting through the gap between my car and the wall. But unless you weighed 25 stone, there was no problem. You could actually walk through. But then again, so I thought, I've heard a rumour through Land Registry that actually my property extends out to the middle of the road and not just to the wall of my house. So I got on the phone to Land Registry. Actually, you know what? Vin asked me to play it, and I haven't got it lined up. I'll have to try and organise it another time. But I do have the recording. Sorry, Vin, I meant to line it up, but there's so many other things going on. But I actually asked Land Registry, and I didn't say to them that, by the way, we're in a housing estate that hasn't been handed over to the council. I just said, I'm in an estate, and I just need to know where the boundary is of my house. And she said, oh, well, with the land, according to the Land Registry, your boundary goes out halfway out to the road. Okay? Yeah. So I thought, well, if my boundary goes out halfway to the road, and I recorded that conversation, if PC Plod comes over and tells me to move my car, I'll play that for him. And, well, first of all, I'll have a little game with him. First of all, I'll say to him, I'll ask him, do I have to move my car? And do you have the law that says I have to move my car? And if he says, well, your boundaries, and I say, are you sure about that? Are you sure? Do you have evidence that says, I'll have a bit of game with PC Plod, and then I'll play him the recording, and let him know that actually he's wrong, because, I'm not being unfair to the Gardaí, but you don't go to the police to find out about what the law is, because they don't know it.
Policies.
Policies, yeah, they know policies, legislation. So I would have played this for PC Plod, but now I know that actually that's my property. Then that means that they would be actually trespassing on my property. Now I spoke to Vin yesterday, and Vin was just we just had a chat about it, and Vin was just saying, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but basically what happens is the council will when they take over an estate, they obviously let people know by letter or public notice or something, and what will happen is, if you don't object to it as normal, no means no. If you don't object to it, then they will take over that plot of land that stretches out to the middle of the road. So myself and Vin, we had a chat, and Vin said he's going to help me put a letter together so I can send to the council to tell them that, no, thank you, but you're not taking over my boundary. I'm keeping that. Thank you very much. That will remain. Yeah, that will. So I want to get that in now, while it's hot, before anything happens. So they so they basically will know that I've said no before they even put any notice up.
If I can just say, it would be interesting to find out as well if you could kind of retrofit that letter as well. You know what I mean? It's an estate that has already been handed over. Could you say, well, okay, that is my boundary right out to there. You seem to have taken this, well, I didn't receive any notification, I want it back, I'm taking it back.
Well, see, again, if they put in a public ad or some kind of planning permission or something like that in a paper, and you weren't aware of it, they'll say, well, then, if you should have objected then.
Yeah, but I mean, from what I've heard before, there's underhandedness goes on with that as well, whereby you could be living in Dublin, and if you're, someone wants to build something next door to you, and you want to object to it, and then they go, oh no, I'm sorry, you had time to object, but you didn't. Hang on a second, I didn't see a notification in the paper, and they say it was in some newspaper in Cork.
Yeah. Well, I did come across I did come across a thing related to statute of limitations, and when you bypass the statute of limitations, it means you can't actually go back and complain, because it's especially when it involves land and registration of land over a period of time. I don't know whether that applies to your boundary outside your house, but there's no harm you sending a letter into the council and saying to them, by the way,
that's important.
When did I agree to give you that boundary?
Yeah. Well, the thing, you see, every council, this letter that I have to do to put up on the internet, because above the no implied right of access here, because people also, to copy fasten this you need to get the name of the law agent in the council, because every council has a law agent. And although they call them a law agent, it's still only the legal department. So if you find out who is the law agent and you write a letter, handwritten, and you pretty much let them know that, no implied right of access exists, where you reside, where your house is, and that you're happy with the existing water supply as it stands, whether you have a contract or not. You're happy with the existing water supply as it stands. If you have the contract, you can always say, well, you're happy with the existing contract as it stands. So they change the contracts all the time, whether it be from the ESB to electricity. Most people never, contracted unwittingly over the phone when they rang, It was electricity. And that's why they record the conversation, because now you have a new contract with electricity.
Yeah.
So, this is how sneaky they do this. So, like Vin was right, it's important that, first in, best dressed. You need to state the situation as is before they come along and change it without anybody knowing. So the idea is to put a notice like that, no implied right of access here on your gate, and put a piece of plastic for everybody to see. But if enough people did this in the estate, well, these contractors put a notice that they can't install these meters. But to really do it is to send a letter then to the law agent of the council mentioning the same thing, and that really gives them a headache, because you've already now the legal department has put on notice, and everything has to go to the legal department in these councils, whether it be a WL line, a light bulb, or contaminated water additives in your tap. Everything has to get rubber stamped through the legal department of the council, and that's where you send your letter.
Well,
because it's right in there.
I'd kill two birds with one stone. I'd tell them about the boundary and the water at the same time, and then they can't, and then obviously send it registered, and then that would be it, And at least the letter's in, and I have a copy of the letter. But here's the other kind of the good thing that happened during the week. One of the councillors who was bidding to be elected actually rang up the council to find out what the state of the estate was, because obviously, excuse me, somebody must have had a bitch to him about the state of the estate, da-di-da-di-da. So one of his minions come around a couple of days later and gave everybody a letter in the estate saying what the status of the estate was regarding the council from from a councillor. And I thought, that's fantastic. I've now got evidence from a councillor saying about the state of the estate and everything else. So if anything happens, then I have that letter to fall back on as well. Now, Vin, as I say, I was talking to Vin yesterday, and obviously Vin mentioned that this could be possibly the same for the property tax as well, the fact that it's a private estate.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the thing about it is, we know that they're trying to link this property tax with revenue, I mean, that's a separate issue. For revenue to take this out of people's wages is a violation. It's in its own right. Even for employers to take income tax out of, the employee's wages is also a violation. But nobody's ever stopped this. Few people have challenged it. Few people have even questioned. I recall signing no such contract. Give me a look at the contract. So I go through the contract, and I can pretty much state, well, within this contract, there are no provisions that I signed up that apparently have given you the right to take my monies from my wages and give it to a third party interloper, whether it's the revenue or not, So it's the same applies to property tax.
Yeah.
And they can't send you a bill anyway because there's no contract in the first place.
Yeah.
So they can only send you notices. And this is why, all these posters have gone up throughout different parts of the country simply stating that a notice and law is not a bill. Return it to sender.
Well, this is it. Now, there's two things I was going to say. One was what Steve said during the week about what happened in the estate. And I think Steve was probably on the money there, that these guys turned up to put the meters in, and maybe they were making the assumption that as long as people didn't say anything, they'd get away with it. The fact that I actually rang up and complained and objected, they were caught. And they have no choice but to leave because they maybe thought, well, we've been rumbled, guys, we have to get out.
Sure.
And obviously,
you see, if people put these on their gates, it's game over because they're put on notice straight away.
Yeah.
And
but the trouble is, the workmen don't understand it, and they'll just be brain dead and go ahead and try and install the meter anyway. They'll just ignore it, and that's the problem and this is why obviously some people have probably gotten into trouble with the guys who are doing the install, because they're just told put the meter in and that's it, and they don't understand. And this is what happened to me when I spoke to the boss when he turned up, and I was just ignored by him, and I said, right, okay, I'm going to go to head office and give them a ring, and I recorded that, and I was very calm on the phone, and I just explained the situation. And as I say, the next day they turned up, they talked for 15 minutes, and then headed off the estate. And that was it. So I definitely the letter I think needs to be done. I mean, time and time again we are told by the law no means no, and that, if a girl's getting raped and she says no, the law states categorically that no means no. So it's important that when we're doing something, regardless of what it is, if we don't like it, we object to it and say no to it.
Sure.
And if
that's where the sovereignty comes in.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
People are sovereign, and that's what sovereignty is all about,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if they ignore that no, and you have it on record that you said no, then going into a court of law, and you say, well, sorry, Judge, but I said, it's no, and I said no to them, and they just completely ignored me. Now, here's the other thing, Harry, which the Independent reported, and you'll probably get a kick out of this. The Irish Water are saying that if people don't pay their bill, they will be brought to court under contract debt. Now, the last time I read something about contract debt being brought to court was the e-flow people. Because they're on their website, the MPA website, National or NRA website, it says that non-payment of e-flow bills will be you'll be brought to court under contract debt. And I'm going, well, hang on, show me the contract?
Sure, well, that's why I did that letter, and that's pretty much gone all over the place. And that letter proves that there wasn't no contract anyway. So there is no bill. I asked them to send me a bill. You see, that letter was actually, I had purchased that registration vehicle van off Mick Curtin, right?
Yeah. So
Mick was getting all these notices, and I was trying to tell Mick for a number of years how to, the essential information, that solves a lot of problems. A notice and law is not a bill. So it's only when he was getting these, I said, look, give me these and I'll show you how it's done. So that's the only reason why that letter was done. But that letter is not actually, it's not required. It's just simply return to sender. So in that letter, I think you've seen it. Yeah, I think most people have seen it at this stage. Page 2 states, of course, that's to be handwritten. I only did it in type because people could easily read it. But I said, yes, sure, I'll pay this alleged debt and proof of claim upon which relief can be granted, which means in simple language is that, sure, yeah, send me the bills. Of course I'll pay it because I pay my bills. Because if you take this so-called bill, that you think it's a bill, into a court of law, and the judge grants you relief for the said amount, sure, I'm sure you get it, but you need to prove to the judge that, there's a bill here. Sure, he grants you relief, but you need to prevent all this. I'm willing to pay this alleged debt and proof of claim upon which relief can be granted. Send me a bill.
Yeah.
So, and they can't. And that's why on page 3 they had to cancel it, because they then referred to Mr. capital letter Michael Curtin as Dear Michael, as a sovereign flesh and blood man. And this is what it's all about. It's all about your sovereignty. And I recall signing no such contract, and they had to cancel it. And what they're panicking about now is the fact that people are going to wake up to this, because it's the same principle applies to household charges, water charges, TV licenses, anything, because a notice in law is not a bill. And that's how simple it is.
Well, here's some good news for you. Obviously, for years you've been telling people about this and educating people about this, and we have learned from you and Ben and a few other people what to do. And I'm not going into detail who the person was, but I was talking to a local person from the local town, who myself and Steve went along to a meeting a couple of years ago, probably about 2 years ago. Remember the meeting we went to? And they were talking about the property tax, okay? And there's a group of people at the top table, and this guy was on the top table. And myself and Steve stood up, and we talked to the people in the room. Mm-hmm. And there's about 50 people there, and we said, but look, a notice is not a bill in law. And we kind of roughly explained to them about the whole return to sender thing, okay, and contracts. And then we and that was it. And, people came up to us after and wanted to know more and told them about the radio show and stuff like that. So anyway, fast forward 2 years later, and I talked to this guy 2 weeks ago. I meet him again, and he goes, I remember your face, and I remember your face, the normal stuff. And he says, that thing that you said about e-flow? And I said, yeah. He said, well, myself and my mate said, we'll try it. And if a big debt comes in, we'll pay it, but we'll give it a go for a bit of fun, right? So he says, we did it, we didn't pay it, and he said after a few weeks the letters dried up and we haven't heard anything since. And he said that was 2 years ago. He said, thank you very much.
That's it. That's save people thousands and thousands and cost these gangsters millions. I mean, they're making tens and tens of millions of euros from the people through fraud and deception. And last week it was in the court. Now they have cranked up the ceiling, the threshold for district courts up to 15,000 euros, and for the circuit court up to 75,000 and beyond. And this was apparently a district court, and he was making legal determinations for 180,000 euros on foot of notices. So the whole court, the whole system in its entirety is completely corrupt and fraud. The judge knows this, and he was making determinations against people who didn't turn up into court on foot of notices. But a notice is not a bill. But once you ignore it, then you go into default. It's like you accept this alleged debt, and they make a determination against you to pay it. Because the people had ignored them, panicked, didn't know what to do, didn't turn up in court, and there's determinations being made against people that don't owe any money at all. Because it's the straw man takes up the tab, and the sovereign then at the end of the day believes they have to pay for it. Yeah, this is the whole system is run on this.
Well, here's the thing, and this is the next topic of that I want to talk to you about. The civil side is the property charge and the water meters. Okay, now let's look at the criminal side, because the criminal side is more so-called criminal side. Okay, because the criminal side is when you say you get stopped for speeding, or you get stopped for not wearing the seatbelt, right? And we know that's corrupt as well. And when you get a bill in the post that says an alleged offence, it's a notice with an alleged offence. Okay, now this is my understanding of how it works, and I could be wrong, okay? But this is my understanding, right? You get say a notice through the post, right? And you say you return to sender, right? You say no thanks, I'm not interested. And they send you another one and what have you, and then all of a sudden you get a summons through the post, or else the cops turn up and issue you with a summons to go to court. Okay? Now that for people who are not used to the system of going to court, it's not so much the worrying part, it's the inconvenience of it. Because if you ignore the summons and do return to sender, then there's going to be a bench warrant put out for you, and then the cops will come and pick you up. And chances are, if they're going to pick you up, they will pick you up when it's the most inconvenient time of, you might have to do the school run or something like that, and that's when they get you, and they won't give a damn, and that's probably going to be a lot of people's concern. Now,
Sure.
they pick you up and they bring you in, and then obviously, you have to be dealt. Now, the way I'm looking at this, and I was looking at Bill Thornton during the week on YouTube, and Bill's approach is to challenge their jurisdiction. And we had Tammy Pepperman on last year, and she was very good. And she was kind of saying the same thing, because the return to sender is a great system, but the problem is when it comes to the likes of the criminal side, it's like walking away from the bully. Now, the bully will either follow you or he'll leave you alone after you tell him to get lost a few times. And I see that with the system, with the whole summons and the bench warrant thing, and that could worry people. So what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to look at is to challenge their jurisdiction, which is what Bill says. So if you get a summons through the post after they ignore the return to sender, you then go and they say, we're summoning you to court and you're going to have to appear on X, Y, and Z day, right? So what you do is you put a letter together which challenges their jurisdiction. Because according to Bill Thornton, he said, as soon as you do that, everything stops. Because they have to then prove their jurisdiction over you. And he says they can't. Because they're not over you. You're sovereign. You're above them.
Yeah. So you see, the problem with that, there's a lot of misinformation on the internet.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's misinformation because I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But when you return to sender within 3 cycles of the sun or the moon, 72 of their hours, right? And this is the ideal thing. That people hang on to these things. Yeah. You need to get rid of it as soon as you can. Yeah. That's the whole idea of this return to sender. Get rid of it within 3 working days of their 72 hours. That's the ideal situation. And just keep doing it. Now, once people go into court, like, summons is only an invitation. Mm. You can summon somebody from the other side of the street. It's up to them to come across if they want, So when you get an invitation to go into a court, which is not a lawful court, it's only a legal court under the Crown anyway. And that's applicable in the States, it's applicable in any bar court, because they're all sworn to the headquarters in London anyway. So if you get a summons to go into court on foot of an allegation that you offended an advanced corporation tax, some act, whether it be a road traffic act or something, you went too fast through the air, there is no injured party, there's no crime being committed, but you volunteered to go in and you volunteered to recognise the court and then argue with the court. You see, when you volunteer to go in to the boxing ring and then you have an argument, they're gonna General Good Shafting, the videos that he put up there a few years ago typified the whole situation. You're going to get shafted. Yeah. Because they're going to captivate you with their language illegalies one way or the other. Yeah. You cannot, if you want to go in, you can go in and request, never ask them for anything. Never say you want. Because if you say you want, then you are subjugating yourself to them. You request that this hearing be held maybe under a sovereign constitution. Is this a sovereign court? Are you sworn under the sovereign seal above your head? Are you sworn to the bar? You can ask these simple questions. That establishes whether they have any lawful authority, even to sit there in the first place, never mind jurisdiction. But you see, if you go into a court, there's 4 stages. There's, if you ignore, it's dishonour. If you argue it, it's dishonour. If you accept, well, then you pay the full amount of whatever they seek. You have conditional acceptance. That's the one you go for. And what that means is that, sure, I pay this on proof a claim upon which relief can be granted. Sure, that's what it means. You're not refusing, but what you're requesting is that the other side, the alleged injured party, produce proof of claim. Sure, I'll pay you these monies if you send me the bill. But they can't, because they can't send you a bill. But the worst place to do that is in court, because, you're going into argument with the court with the banker on the bench and the judge, and he does not want the rest of the court to know this.
Well, of
so
course,
if
the judge represents the state, and then obviously the barrister or the guard represents the state, then
so it's a conflict of interest.
It's a conflict of interest, so he should be thrown out. Now, Carl Lentz, I was listening to Carl Lentz talking about this, and he's trying to simplify everything. And
That's the best way.
Yeah, he says, look, simplify everything. And he just said, his way, and I don't know whether this would work, but his way is to say to the judge, Judge, I'm sorry if you think I've broken a rule in your system, but I'm not part of your system. I'm not a member of your society. So I'm sorry, but I don't know why I'm here.
Sure. Well, you see, the thing about it is, I've seen one or two of his clips, and they're good because he simplifies the fact of that there is a conflict of interest here. The judge is employed by the state. The cop is prosecuting on behalf of the state, and you're the only sovereign flesh and blood there. So the state can't talk. He can only talk on behalf of the state, alleging that you offended the state as a legal fiction entity, and then the judge, makes a determination on behalf of the state. So of course there is a conflict of interest, which even blows their rules and regulations out of the water. But as a flesh and blood sovereign man or woman, the thing about how to retain your sovereignty and act as such, and it's only through action or thinking or walking that will determine that you are a sovereign flesh and blood man, and you know how to be that by simply not even going into court. Now, and that's all you do, keep return to sender. So if a cop knocks on your door, for example, you don't have to answer it. You don't even have to talk to them. But if by chance you open it unwittingly and they're there, and they may stuff a summons into your paw, which they've done with me because I've opened the door, having returned stuff to sender, and they walked off, and I simply closed and locked the door, and I always keep those stickers in my top pocket, and I simply walked around to the post box on the way to get a bottle of milk, and I just popped it back in the post box. That's all. So it goes back to the clerk. So it's just business, yeah. So that's why they have a clerk.
Yeah, but then that means the fact that you're not appearing and you sent it back to them, that means that they'll issue a bench warrant for you.
Well, if they do that, and the cops come to arrest, and they forcibly take you, and they're about to do that, it's either civil or criminal. So it's a civil or criminal.
Well,
so if you are locked up, the only thing you need to say, you don't have to say anything or sign anything, just say, okay, I need to see a judge now immediately. And they have to do that. So if you're brought before a judge on this allegation, all you got to do and say to the judge is it's civil or criminal. That's all it is. So he can't say it's criminal because there's no crime being committed. There's no injured party. There is no hurt flesh and blood man or woman. There's no theft. There's no crime being committed. So I'll be on my way, and he can just simply walk out of court.
But this is the problem with the system. I mean, again, if the police did turn up, and again, they don't know the law. They don't know the law. They're just doing what they're told to do. And as I say, it's always going to happen at the time you don't want it to happen. As I say, inconvenience. If you do the summons, send it back in the post, and they're told there's a bench warrant out for this person, and they turn up, and you're just about to go out to do something, or to pick up your kids or whatever, and they take you away. They won't give a monkeys, and they'll just take you away. And that would be the concern for a lot of people, that it's the inconvenient. It's not so much because it's a Mickey Mouse court system anyway. We're in a banana republic, for God's sake. We're trying to wake the guards up to this as well. But it's just the inconvenience and the concern. So if I, put it this way, if I was a single guy, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. But the fact that, you have a family, to deal with and family things to do and all that, you can guarantee that it's going to happen on the time that it's going to be inconvenient. So my idea is to, and this is what I'd like to, I'm trying to research and find out, is there a way that when the summons comes in, you can do, as Bill Thornton says, a counterclaim, because you have to become the plaintiff, not the defendant. Because if you go in as a defendant, you're going into their court. If you go in as a plaintiff, then you're going into your own sovereign court, right? So you counterclaim and you say, right, before I deal with you, I want you to tell me what give me your jurisdiction. Tell me what jurisdiction you have, to call me in to do what you're doing, and you counterclaim against them. And according to Bill, anyway, he said that's where it stops, because they legally can't do anything until they turn around and they say they have jurisdiction over you, which technically they don't. Steve?
Yeah, well, you see, people need to realise that the people unwittingly actually give them the jurisdiction. Like, I give you an example of how this works. You see, some of the stuff is right and some of it's half right and some of it's half wrong, because, I don't go into court. I've been invited many times. So, the last encounter, let's say, I had with these policy officers, see, the sworn guardians of the peace. So this is why we can hold them to their oaths of office. So I was driving there a couple of weeks ago, and I drive this van, nice clean van.
Were you driving or travelling?
Well, I was travelling, but I used the term just for ease, for people who were listening. So I was travelling in this van that I had purchased, and there was 3 of us in it. So I was encouraged, I was summoned by this figure on a motorcycle to pull in. Of course, I didn't give it any recognition, so I continued on my path. So until this bike cut across, and I had no choice but to stop, and I had rolled the window down some 2 inches or so, and this guy come up and he says, I told you to pull in. I said, well, I didn't hear you say anything, and I wait for you to pull in. Well, I says, I'm going that way. You see, straight ahead, but your bike is in the way, I said, Yeah. So he said, there's no tax on this. It's out 13 months or something, Yeah. And there's no DOE. And I said, well, what are you telling me for? I said, So he said, oh, you're being smart. So I said, no, I wish I was. So I said, is there a problem? Is there a crime being committed? So he took out his notebook and pen, and then I took out my notebook and pen. So he said, hand over the key. And I said, I can't do that. You see, it depends what you say and what you don't say.
Yeah.
Okay? This is important for people to know. People want to get into argument. I just said, no, I can't do that. And he says, why is that? And I said, well, it sustains me on the planet. I need this to sustain me. I said, I can't. I paid money for it. And, So he said, get out of the van. And I said, I can't do that either. So he opened the door to, crank up the situation. And I slammed the door and I locked it. And I says, you're out of order, I said. Now, I said, I'm putting you on your oath of office. I said, you're a sworn guardian of the peace. And I'm going to hold you to the oath of office. I said, you just made it, you violated it. I said, you're actually violating my sovereign rights by doing what you've done. So I'm writing this down. So he said, have you any identification? The only thing I had on me was a card at the time. And see, a lot of the free men think that if you show them identification that you're contracting. You're not. So I hadn't any license. So he said, have you a license? I said, no. But I may have some form of ID. So he wanted to take the van. I'm going to take the van. I said, no, you need my consent, and I do not consent for the reasons that I've given you. So, unless there's a crime being committed here, I'm going to be on my way, I said, So he said, I need some type of identification. And I said, I think I have. So I had the registration book of the van. I didn't know I had it. So I said, here's a bit of piece of paper here. So he wrote it down, and he was satisfied then with that. They don't want to believe it's paper. You see, their society is paper, and they can't accept the words. You're exercising your five senses here. This is what sovereignty is all about. So I didn't give him my name or any details from my mouth, because that has to go through a process of thinking and intent and wish, will, and intent to do that. So when you show them pieces of paper, it's their pieces of paper from their system, and you reflect that back at them. That satisfies them.
Yeah.
And he went on his way, and so did I, and that was the end of it. Until he said, you're going to get summonses in the post and fines, and you've been a bold boy for not doing this, and I said, sure, well, you do your business, and I'll get on and do mine, So when that invitation then came in the post, a couple of days later, it just simply returned to sender.
Okay, go ahead.
And people need to, know. You see, sovereignty is just an idea to most people out there at the moment, because it's kind of the new buzzword now, being bounced around the past year, especially. But I mean, it takes a while for that to get into your blood, where you walk that, and you talk it, and you think it, and you believe it, and you live it. And that takes a while. That takes probably the guts of 2 years.
Yeah, it does take a time to learn the system and to understand it and get it into your blood. I heard a great story of a chap in the UK who got done by a speed camera, and one of the things I kind of agree with the fact. Look, the police I just give them whatever they say. If they say, have you got a license, whatever, just give them the details, because they don't know anything, and what they will do is they'll use coercion or force or whatever to get what they want. Like what happened to you, they opened up the door, because they do think they're bloody God, some of these guards. Not all of them, but some of the guards do think they're God and think they're... Especially
the traffic core. So I closed the door very quickly, and I said, you're out of order, locked the doors, and I said, no, I'm putting you on your oath of office. I said, you're a foreign peace officer.
Yeah.
There is no breach of peace. There is no crime, because if there is, I'd like to report it straight away.
Yeah.
You keep doing a 180 on this.
Yeah.
Now, I said, you're being used as a policy officer, a police officer, to enforce a money system. I said, you didn't. That's not you didn't swear an oath to that. They don't actually have the right to stop you and ask you for tax, because that's going into commerce.
Yeah. But look, they don't even have a right to be there to evict people from houses, but they turn up.
No.
No,
they don't.
Yeah, but this guy, I have to tell you the story because it's very good, just for if this happens to somebody. So anyway, he gets done by a speed camera and he gets summoned to court. And so he goes to court anyway, and the judge calls him up, and he says, you've been speeding, radar gun, da-di-da-di-da. So he says, well, I want to question the actual, I have a right to question the police officer who was there on the day who actually used the radar gun. So obviously the judge said, well, go ahead, it's your right to do that. So he went up to the police officer and said, now he says, you were standing there with the radar gun. Can you tell me something? He says, were you standing there to generate revenue, or were you standing there to actually for safety reasons? And the police officer said, well, we were there for safety reasons. And he goes, well, I just want to ask you that question again. Because what happened was, sorry, I better go backtrack, right? What happened was, he not only was done for the speeding, but he was also done for warning other people, right? So when they stopped him, right, he went off and he started, waving the people or flashing the people, warning about the speed, and he was stopped again. And they said, and that's what they did him for, apparently. So anyway, he goes to court, and he said, he said, I'm just going to ask you again. He said, were you doing that for revenue, or were you doing that for safety? And the police said, well, I was doing it for safety. That's for safety. And he goes, fine. He said, Judge, he said, I was doing the same thing. He said, I was concerned that obviously there must be an area of that road that was dangerous, and I was warning my fellow motorists that there could be danger ahead, and I was warning them. So he turns around to the police officer again and said, no, police officer, he said, I'll just ask you again, why are you doing that for revenue, or why are you doing that for safety? And then the judge clocked it and said, that's okay, case dismissed, we leave it at that. Because they couldn't turn around and say it was for revenue. And you can't turn around and go, well, you're being arrested because you were warning people that there could be danger. Yeah. And then he turned around and go, are you telling me it's illegal to warn people that there's danger?
Yeah, you see, there are many ways. That's brilliant, because there are many ways of what I call reversing the headache. You know? You see, what is their intent? What is their oath of office? What is their function? If their function is to collect revenue, which has been proved, and that's the function of the courts, and that's been proved, they can't let that information out. They can't also let the remedy or the solution out, because you're going to cripple their system, because it's their society. It's just money, revenue, currency, flow. That's why they play in the court. It's a racket. It's a game. They hit these tonsil hockey legal arguments, but, you know, to and fro. It's just a game, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's not about justice. It's about just them. It's about their fat pockets, buying new yachts in the Bahamas every year and spending 3 or 4 months there. And some of them might end up with helicopters, you know. They're very, very wealthy people, and the only reason why they're wealthy is because we, the people, make them wealthy.
Exactly.
The only reason why they're flying around in nice big cars and houses and big fatties on fat pensions is because the people have volunteered to comply. And they volunteer to comply unwittingly. And this has to end, and that's why politics won't change anything. Because in the interim, let's say, you know, I know you're probably going to bring that up, the political situation in the last couple of days. The only thing the political situation has changed today with the last election is that independents may get in. The political parties, you know, are pretty much redundant, at least 2 of them kind of. It's caused a bit of a shift somewhat, but it doesn't implement solutions, because the system will still go on and on as before, and they'll pay the rest of them off one way or the other to keep the whole status quo in place. And it's up to the people to change it. And that's the only good thing about the voting quite recently, because it got the likes of Oisin Quinn out, who refused Billy Maguire entry to the Mansion House. The first time in 95 years the IRB were refused entry into the Mansion House, because Oisin Quinn is a senior counsel. He's sworn to his Queen, and he couldn't have a conflict of interest to witness the turning of the seal, because he'd be committing treason to his Queen.
Yeah.
So there's all these hidden things that people need to know. And, you know, people need to wake up. You know, they really genuinely need to wake up, because they're in a program. They don't realise they're in a program. That's why it's the people need to wake up. Once the people wake up and take the power back for themselves, I'm not saying you have to vote for yourself, because all you have to do is act in a certain way and stop complying in a way that you know how to do that. You need to know how to not comply. You know, so you don't get...
Yeah. Well, this is why I think it's if for people who are new to this, the best way to start getting involved in this is deal with the civil stuff first and get confident with that and get happy with that, like the water meters and the property taxes and all, and start understanding that side. And then when you're happy with that and you've dealt with that and you have, you know, then start going down, you know, if need be, go down, you know, if you do get a fine or stuff like that, because I'm dealing with it, you know, although we've been doing the radio show for a long time, I'm beginning to understand the law more and more and more, and so I'm approaching it from the civil side first, and when I'm comfortable with that, then I'll start doing the criminal side, and that's the way I'm going to deal with it, because the civil side is going to be easier to deal with than the criminal side, because you won't have policy enforcers turning up at your house and looking to give you an invite to court and all that kind of stuff. But listen, we have a few questions come in, and I'm going to pass you over to Steve. So over to you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, Harry, great information as per usual. A couple of
Can't guarantee I'll answer anything.
the day you can't answer something will be a sad day indeed. Come on, just backtracking a little bit there. Mick at Liffey Sound, Mick put in a question early on in the conversation. This was in relation to when you're putting, say, the Irish Water Board or Ishka Air, when you're putting them on notice, telling not to come onto your property and you don't want them metered and all this. Mick was wondering, can you ask Harry how this concept would apply to a private rented property?
Well, you see, unless the landlord, unless you sign a contract that enables you to, if you signed a contract to pay for water, you either signed a contract. You either contracted to pay for the water, or you didn't. And if you don't want to pay for something that's creator given, and they didn't buy it off the God, and they can't lawfully charge the people because I recall signing no such contract, and all you got to do is say, I'm happy with the existing. My existing water as it stands. Why should I want to change it? That's the principle where you have to come from. You have to kind of come backwards on the whole thing, and then try and find a tangible reason why you should pay for this. When you recall signing no such contract. Never say you don't remember. Always say, I recall signing no such contract, because if you say I don't remember, well, anything that comes before or after that is the suspect. They can argue that. This is how fine that they have this stuff in their society.
So I'm guessing
never say you don't remember.
So when you're saying I recall signing no such contract, that's you're pretty much saying I don't remember. But I suppose.
No, I do remember. I recall signing no such contract.
Yeah,
Not that I don't remember.
Sorry. Yeah,
but once you say, I recall signing no such contract, that is definitive in there. That's lawful,
Yeah, sorry. When I said that back to you, it came out arseways. What I meant was, by the language that you were using there, saying, I recall signing no such contract, that's kind of speaking to them in their own language, so to speak, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah, because it's you see, you don't have to learn all their law books, because they're only legal books. That's what they do. They preoccupy you with a load of bull, But when you say, I recall signing no such contract, that's definitive in both worlds. It's neutral, it's cancelled out, because they can say, well, maybe this and maybe that, and if but this, yada, yada, yada. There is no ambiguity here. It's as clear, it's as crystal clear as water. There's no confusion. There's nothing. You recall signing no such contract. And that's all you have to say if you're in a situation like that. Well, I recall signing no such contract. Yeah. And they will go into an argument, but everybody else does. Well, I'm not everybody,
Yeah. Actually, speaking about contracts, Mick wrote back there, he said that there's absolutely nothing on his rent agreement contract about paying for water, so he says he's going to look into it, but his query is based on the fact that it's not his property. If the landlord wants one in his house, can I stop him? I guess no. If the landlord wants it, then Mick is probably powerless to do anything about it. But Mick doesn't have to pay for it.
No, well then you have to draw up a new contract. If the landlord wants Mick to be subject to this meter that he wants, but he has to draw up a new contract, and then he has to present it to Mick for consideration. This is how. Once you know the principles, the simple basic principles, and work backwards from those, and then apply it to yourself in your everyday life, you can see how clear and simple this is.
Yeah, maybe Mick could a meeting of the minds, and maybe put something into the contract that if the landlord wants it, then he can pay for it.
Well, sure. I mean, there's loads of ways out of this, because if the landlord owns the house, you see, what they're doing now, they're sending it to the owner or the occupier or the resident. They're making all these words up to try and trap people. I mean, for the banks, the banks apparently allege that they own these properties with mortgages on them until the last cent is paid. Well, if people believe these notices or bills, well, then send it to the bank.
Oh, we have a phone call coming in. Hang on a minute there. Good evening, caller. You're on OYM. Do you have a question for Harry? Oh, you there? Ah, Piers. Okay, listen, Piers. We're in the middle of an interview at the moment. That's okay. We'll give you a call in about 40 minutes. Okay. Talk to you. All right. Cheers. Bye bye.
Oh, that was interesting.
Right, that was interesting.
Okay.
That was our guest who was supposed to be on at 7 o'clock, and he's just ringing in now. So
at 8:20.
Yes, 8:20. Yes, okay. I don't know.
He can predict the weather.
He can predict the weather.
Vortex.
Yeah, he just shouldn't need.
Vortex.
He just needs to buy a watch. Okay, we'll call him back later and we'll touch base with him. Yeah. Go ahead.
You couldn't write that.
You couldn't write that.
Yeah. Anyway, come here. You were talking earlier about being civil or criminal, and Alan was saying like if PC Plot, as you referred to him, called, he was going to ask him would it be civil or criminal. Agent, one of the long-time listeners, wrote in because we're talking about civil or criminal, and Agent says that it may not be civil or criminal, it could be legal, and legal doesn't need an injured party, and that legal is you versus the Crown, and legal only applies to you if you claim a legal name. Does that make any sense?
Oh, that makes sense, yeah. If you want to go into a legal argument rather than a lawful one, I mean, law is very simple.
Yeah.
It's either civil or criminal. If you broke the law, right, criminal. If you broke law, caused harm, loss and injury, you've broken the law. So, sure, I mean, if I broke law, I'd be rightfully arrested. But I don't break law. I don't cause harm, loss and injury. Or be fraudulent. So, there is no injured party. It's only an allegation that, an act is offended by a Mr. Capital Letters legal fiction. And I'm not that, because that's just a piece of paper. That's why it's called stationery, yeah? Yeah.
Well, what about...
It doesn't move, so I'm not dead.
And when you handed him over, that guy in the suit on the motorbike, when you handed him over the piece of paper that satisfied his curiosity, by that piece of paper, were you granting him consent?
No, I didn't have it. I showed it to him. But you see, he took it. That was okay. It's a piece of paper of their society. I didn't make the piece of paper. Another department of their registered company produced that. So identification isn't you.
Yeah.
The closest identification that you can get is a mirror, right? And that's only a reflection.
But again, the problem is trying to tell the police this. It's like I went up to the workers with the Irish Water workers and said they're implied right of access, and I explained to one of the guys originally who came around what it was, so he could understand what I was telling him, and obviously didn't. It just fell on deaf ears, and this is the problem with the guards as well, because they're just conditioned to believe what they're told in Templemore, and they come out and they use their intimidation or coercion to do what they want. Now, I don't know whether it's worthwhile for people, Harry, I don't know whether this is a good idea, but for people who have had, say, fines, for example, whether that's a parking fine or whatever, and they now realise the way the system works, would it be worthwhile to send a letter in to wherever the fine went to be paid, to say, well, listen, I now know what the system is and what's going on, and I believe that you used, that you would use threats of intimidation and coercion if I didn't pay this fine. So as far as I'm concerned, this is wrong, and pursue it in a small claims court or something. Would that be of any benefit?
I know. Well, hang on a sec. I need to get something for a sec.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
it's
you see, if you go into their court and you're going into their system and arguing their system. Argument is dishonour in their system, so you don't have to go in. It's up to the people to what you can't. I've been trying to wake the people up for years. It's very difficult to do that. The only best way of doing it is pretty much a group of people, and there's a group in Cork who are doing it now. They're doing 10 people at a time, and they won't take any more people. And they're waking these people up because they want to be awakened to how the system works and how to deal with it. Most of the time, how not to deal with it. And, most of the time it's what you don't say. And it's most of the time what you don't do, which keeps you away from their society.
Yeah.
If you want to go into a court and argue their court, well, you're going to be hammered because you go in and recognise the court to try and dissolve it. There's not a hope in hell you're going to do that, because this legal system has been in place for many, many years. And, we need a lawful and just system in. We don't need a convoluted, system that's, openly robbing the people because, through coercion. But it's up to the individual to really get this. It's up to the individual to need to get this. If they don't need to get this, well, they're going to be, they're going to volunteer to comply as long as they can, because they can afford to do that.
Yeah.
Well,
this is the argument with
that's pretty much it. It's convenience,
Yeah, well, that's the same thing with what's going on now with Irish Water. If people can't afford to pay it, they'll just comply to it. It's when they start having problems paying their bills, that's when people start waking up and saying, well, hang on a minute, because we were talking, myself and Steve were talking during the week, and Steve mentioned about the sewage, that they're looking to going to be, charging for sewage. So
yeah, well, when you flush a loo, you're going to use the water, and that uses a third of it, so they're already charging for the sewage anyway. But what's being implemented here is a corporate takeover, not just in Ireland but everywhere else, for the global agenda.
Yeah, of course.
The Agenda 21.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's happening with the rural post offices being closed down and making it harder for people. They want everybody to move into the city so they have more control over the people, so hence why the countryside is being affected. And that's the whole, and that's just part and parcel of it. And if people don't believe this, I actually found, we talked about this on the show before, go to the County Meath, for example, the County Meath website, and type in Agenda 21, and it's actually on there. They're already talking about it in County Meath for Agenda 21, and I'm sure the other councils are doing it as well.
Well, I was surprised to see one or two political parties promoting Agenda 21, and in one way it didn't surprise me, And I won't mention them, but because people say, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist." Most people have heard them, but they were promoting Agenda 21 in Cork. And, I said to the guys in Cork, I said, look, there's too much controlled opposition out there. Agenda 21, it's in your face, it's been implemented slowly, surreptitiously, incrementally, step by step. People don't even notice. Even if you weren't, it doesn't matter what you believe or what where you come from. Look at the national schools. There is no flag on the schools anymore. And that's part of Agenda 21, where all forms of national identity are to be abolished for local governance under Agenda 21.
Yeah.
You've common purpose flags being put up in the schools. There are no national flags. There's very few of them. So this will be another letter, and it's up to the people to do this. The people who are aware of the information now, they need to put pen to paper and write a letter, for example, to the new Minister for Education, and request her to, can you please, state one way or the other, is there a policy now that all national flags are to be taken off the schools? And if so, for what reason? So people need to write these letters, and they need to really know what's going on. And if people don't do this, it's acquiescence, it's silence.
Yeah, again, it's no means no. And
it goes again.
Yeah,
nobody notices.
Yeah, you have to go and say no. You have to complain. Now, opening this up a little bit wider outside Ireland, Harry, I don't know whether you know, but recently Christine Lagarde has turned around and she was talking about the reset of the world economic system because of, all these countries in massive debt, trillions of dollars and trillions of euros, and we'll never pay it back. So she's talking about a reset. Now, this has been going on for a while, but it seems to be getting nearer and nearer where they're talking about it. They're trying to get this into the psyche of the people. Now, I don't know whether it's that the reset is a good thing, or whether, I don't know whether it's going to be controlled by the banks, or who'll benefit. Will we benefit? Will there be a debt write-off? I mean, I don't know much about it or what the plan is, because they're just talking about it at the moment. But again, I don't know whether this is part of the whole global thing where they'll have a global currency and part of the NWO side of things, which is the bigger picture. I think, for people out there from a sovereign point of view, I think, and you just have to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining. I think what we're going to be doing is getting more into communities and helping each other and to be service to others, which is where we should be going anyway, rather than service to self, which is what the old paradigm is. And I'd like to think with the consciousness of the planet and the amount of people, I mean, there are a lot of people actually waking up now. I'm very surprised. People actually who wouldn't kind of think about even the politics, are looking at the likes of DDI and Ming Flanagan and going, you know what, these guys are talking sense, and they're moving away from the whole old paradigm of politics and what's going on, and they're seeing the way the country's being run. But I'm still amazed at these people that are voting for the mainstream parties when, I mean, I think it's important to vote. I think it is. Now, I know people will say there's no point because it's controlled. Look, it's not going to kill you to get up and go down the road and put a tick on a piece of paper. It won't kill anybody. But if it helps in a little way, even with the likes of Ming Flanagan and a couple of MEPs over there who have a mouth on them and who we probably will stick up for Ireland, then brilliant, because that's what we need. And maybe it's going to be a slow process. It'll probably take a few years. But, at the end of the day, we have a big election coming up in 2016, and it's a stepping stone to, getting these politicians out, because it's all kind of blatant. It's in your face now. I mean, the whole Alan Shatter episode, what went on there in the banking system, people can see it. It's on telly, it's on their face. And now with the likes of DDI and the likes of Tom Darcy going on and saying to people, and I think my neighbour seen Tom on RTE, and he said, you know what, and he's seen him on Vincent Brenner as well, and he said, I like that guy, he's really putting it out there. And they're telling people about the elephant in the room when normally these parties don't say anything. And they're exposing the elephant in the room, and that's what needs to be done. And we need to keep doing that. And even from the Gardaí, we need whistleblowers, we need people like John Wilson and Maurice McCabe to expose what's going on. I believe there's another whistleblower up in Donegal who's come out and exposed stuff that's going on up there. And
that's important.
Yeah, I think that's
vital,
Yeah.
Now, the only thing about, I mean, politics, even the political parties out there, whether they're one way or the other or individuals, I've asked to date, I haven't seen one solution being proposed by anybody. Not one. And I've asked a number, just ad lib, where are the solutions? I haven't seen one new solution posted.
Well, what do you think of
5 years?
What do you think of direct democracy as
a
process?
Well, you see, when I looked at one of the videos with direct democracy, I mean, I saw a Dutch man. I didn't see an Irish man. If you're in, Holland, you'd expect a guy from Holland promoting or at least trying to get his head around the concept of Irish sovereignty. First of all, I said, well, why is the Dutchman trying to talk about sovereignty? And why is he invoking the 22 Constitution, which brings this country back under the Crown? And, also the fact, I just questions, I'm not condemning anybody here, I just questions, unanswered questions about DDI that have never got to date. So that's one of them. Also about promoting Agenda 21, and they were promoting Agenda 21 in Cork. So,
DDI were promoting Agenda 21 in Cork?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Okay.
Also, the 22 Constitution being invoked, which brings this country back under the Crown, and also the fact about Jan, whatever his name is, the leader of the DDI, suggesting that if you vote for them, they give you sovereignty. I mean, they got it wrong, or else they're using the concept of sovereignty to promote the agenda. I really don't know, but I'm not happy with it from those point of views that I've mentioned. I'm sure, the whole thing is maybe well intended, but I just have unanswered questions myself. So sovereignty is something that can't be given. There's no political party can give you sovereignty. You're born sovereign. All you have to do is accept it.
But would it
understand what it is about what it is, how to walk the sovereign path, and there's nobody in the world can make you sovereign.
Okay, but being a devil's advocate, do you think that he said that for people who don't understand? Because people feel detached from the system, that they feel like they're slaves to the system, and he was saying that for people who don't understand. And the whole idea of him saying that is, it gives back your sovereignty. He's only saying that for the people who don't understand the whole process. He's keeping it simple.
Maybe so, and it's great to hear people use the word sovereign. That's the key. Sovereignty is the key.
Yeah.
Once people wake up to their sovereignty as an individual, a flesh and blood man or woman, not a piece of paper.
Okay.
None of this stuff applies to you.
Okay.
There's a miss.
Well,
People need to get it.
I'll tell you what. Stay there with us for a minute, Harry. We're going to play a 10-minute segment, right? And I'll just. This is I was in the car with my son during the week, okay, and he was asking me about things, and I thought, oh well, he's only 12, going on 13, he won't really know much, and he came out with a couple of things, and I thought, God, he's only 12, but he's really he's got some information. He's probably got more knowledge than adults. And I said to him, listen, I want to record you, and I want you to tell me, without any prompting, what you feel about things, and just from a 12-year-old's point of view, right? So I'm going to play you. This is only a 10-minute clip, but this is my son, me talking to my son, and asking him about what he thinks about what's going on, and let me know what you think. Right, so I was driving along the other day, and I was having a chat with my son, and I was talking about the state of Ireland. We were having a bit of chat about it. He asked me a couple of things, and I didn't think, being a 12-year-old going on 13, I didn't think he'd know much about what was going on in the country, because normally kids that age are normally Xbox and TV and all that kind of stuff. And I have to say, I was very surprised at what he said to me, and the knowledge that he has gained, obviously, by hearing myself and his mum talking, and obviously picking up things in general, maybe from the radio show, I don't know. But good evening, Connor. How are you?
Grand.
Okay. We were having a chat the other day, and we were talking about the state of Ireland. So, what's your thoughts on Ireland? What do you think? What do you think about the country the way it is at the moment?
Well, the government are taking our money, which we worked hard all day. We probably hate all the jobs that we're doing, but we're feeding our families, well, people's families, and we're working sweat and blood for the money, and they're just taking it away like taking sweets from a baby, which, in my opinion, should not be right.
And do you think that the politicians are helping the people in Ireland?
No, certainly not.
Okay. And what do you think of the politicians at the moment?
Well, the mainstream parties are all corrupted. They should help people instead of take their money and just give us ridiculous taxes that just increase their money.
Okay. And so do you think the politicians today are helping the people?
No, they're not, because proper parties would help us and make Ireland a better place, but these are just the opposites.
Okay, and what do your friends say to you? You probably don't talk politics with your friends, but do your friends say anything about things?
No, they don't.
No. They haven't really thought about it, have they not?
No. They would vote for their parents would vote for parties mainstream parties.
Right, okay. And if you were an adult, if you were old enough to vote, based on what you know, who would you vote for?
Well, I would vote for any independent, and if there's someone I know that, like Ben Gilroy from DDI, Direct Democracy Ireland, or Ming Flanagan, or any independent that's not on a mainstream party would do.
And why do you think independence and DDI would be your preference? Why? Why would you select them?
Because DDI's aim is to make Ireland a better place and get rid of these corrupted mainstream parties.
Right, and the independents?
Well, the independents are kind of in the same goal, but they're just on their own. They have no people to influence them.
Right, okay, well that's very good. And with all these taxes, what do you think about the water, the quality of our water at the moment?
It's, in my opinion, poisoned. They put fluoride in and they expect us to pay taxes for this poisoned water that we unaware people drink and they don't know.
I know. And what do you think of the food? Is there any poisons in food that you know of?
Yeah, pesticides.
Right. Oh well, pesticides. And what other chemicals do you think?
Aspartame, MSG.
Right, okay. So, and you know they're dangerous, don't you?
Yep.
Right, and we try and avoid them, don't we?
Yep.
Now, what other things in Ireland do you see that are taking place? What other things are the police or the government doing to affect the people?
They're putting on more fines on people, which is not for your safety because you're speeding. Say you're speeding, and the reason they're fining you is because it's an excuse to get more money.
Okay, and so what do we do about it? What can we implement? What can we do?
Well, attack the tax, which they help to fight the tax, the ridiculous taxes that they charge you, say the water tax, which, as I said before, taxes you for poisoned water, which you drink unaware that it's got fluoride in it.
Right, okay. And what kind of law would you prefer to see?
I'd prefer to see common law.
And, okay, why is that?
Because common law is only harm, loss or injury.
Right, okay. So, okay, and how does that work then?
Well, say you want to park. Some people have started putting their cars over water shores where they put the meters. And the police, if someone calls the police, they say you're obstructing the path, and it's illegal, but it's not unlawful. Have you killed someone? Have you hurt someone? Or have you done any damage? Then if you have none of those things, that doesn't apply.
Okay, very good. That's very good. And do you know what your rights are, Connor?
Your rights are anything, but if it's harm, loss or injury, you have to face the consequences. Your rights are anything you want it to be.
Very good, very good. And on a global scale, I mean, I know you don't watch much TV in the news, but what do you think's happening globally?
Well, the police in America are resorting to brute force in order to get more money. I mean, they call themselves peace officers, but their real name should be money enforcers. And
do you think that, like, if the police over here, the Gardaí, I mean, they have a very hard job to do, obviously, but do you think, are they being fair?
No, they're not being fair.
Why is that?
Because, as I said before, they're fining us for things that we never even done, and it's just an excuse. Say you were going at a casual speed, and they pulled you over and said you were speeding, and then they say you have to pay €8 fine, €100 fine. But in truth, that, in my opinion, it is a excuse to get more money off you.
Okay, and do you think that's fair?
No, it's not fair at all.
Right, okay. And who do you think is behind that?
The government.
Oh, right, okay. So. And
the mainstream parties as well.
Okay, so what do you think we should do then to solve this problem?
I recommend that when the next vote comes, vote on independents like Ming Flanagan, or independents that are local elections, but for your votes, vote for Ben Gilroy, DDI, Direct Democracy Ireland, and vote for Ming Flanagan.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, so you reckon with DDI and Ming Flanagan we have a chance of changing the country, do you?
We have a big chance. I mean, if they're on the platter, we have got them by the scruff of their necks. We could push them back to make Ireland a way better place.
And that'll be better for you and your friends, won't it?
It'll be better for all of us. I mean, there'll be no ridiculous taxes like water meters, taxing how much water we use, even though it's poisoned, and there'll be no more taking our money.
And property taxes and stuff like that?
No, there'll be no more property taxes at all.
Right.
We can live free now.
And what do you say to adults who don't understand what you've just said?
Well, I say to them, wake up, smell the coffee, and realise what you're doing. The more you vote the mainstream parties, the more they're going to push more taxes, they're going to probably increase the water meters, and they're going to make things worse. So open your mind, listen to radio shows such as Open Your Mind Ireland, and just smell the coffee and realise what they're doing and vote for independence or possible DDI.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Conor, for coming in and giving us a bit of a heads up on what you think of the way things are going at the moment. So there you go. That's my 12-year-old son telling us how he feels about the economy and the world. And, I mean, in all honesty, there's no prompting there. That's the way my son sees it. And it's good to get an opinion from a 12-year-old. And, you know, I have to say, I mean, I think my son is probably well ahead on even a few adults out there of his knowledge of what's going on and how to deal with it and the way things should be done. So, what can I say?
Well, there's no doubt about that. If the adults, if the critical mass of adults had that comprehension that he has, you know, sure the game would be done. You know, the job would be done.
Yeah, it's. I was bowled over, I have to say, by, you know, when I was talking to him and how much he knew. Now, you know, he picks up on things obviously, and but you know, I'm not sitting down and coaching him. You know, we just have chats in the car and we'd have open discussions. But the rest he's just kind of picked up and he's, you know, seeing what's going on, and he just sees what's going on is unfair. And maybe that's the new generation that's, you know, it's going to make changes as well.
Sure. Well, the younger generation will make the change because, you know, if they're given the facts, if they comprehend the facts, assimilate them and, you know, implement them in their own life, well, sure, that's the whole system change for the benefit of the people, you know. Yeah,
definitely.
You know, it's great that he has that understanding, you know, about it, you know, at that early age. And that's what will change everything, you know?
And I think, Steve, you're going to do the same thing. Have a quick conversation with your kids, and you know,
it's on the cards, yeah. I mean, I don't know if they'll be as clued in as Conor. They may well be, because I mean, like probably like you. If I'm talking at home, if I'm having a discussion with the wife, or if I'm on Skype to you during the week, it's generally kind of this kind of information that we talk about. I mean, I don't talk about Coronation Street or who's shagging who or anything like that. You know, that doesn't interest me. So obviously it does rub off on the kids. I mean, as I told you a couple of weeks ago, my daughter was asked in school about they were doing a project for home economics. She was asked, what are the benefits of water fluoridation? And she said, benefits? There are no benefits. It's a poison. You know, I mean, even stuff like that. But I have to say, and I must ask Conor later, when he was saying about if you were travelling at a casual speed. I've been in the car with you when you were travelling at a casual speed. And Nigel Mansell couldn't catch.
Hey, listen, I don't speed. I'm just being assertive. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, come here. I know we're going to be tight for time, and there are a few more questions for Harry.
Go ahead.
Harry, this is one come in from Agent. It's a very important one. An agent wanted me to ask. It's about the birth cert. Agent says, question, the birth cert is Crown copyright, therefore the name on the birth cert is Crown copyright, so anything registered in the name of the birth cert is owned by the Crown. Would that be correct?
It's likely to be the case. You know? I mean, the birth certificate is just an identification. All the identification is based from and on that, you know?
Yeah.
And they need the adults. When the adults grow up, they have to get the adults to contract and comply with all the paper from that's based from that. You know, it's just a corporation. It's like the United States. It's just a corporation. It's not America, which is the nation. And the same applies to Ireland. ERA is the nation, and Ireland is the corporation. So the governments, and it's the same. It's whoever is in power, inverted comma, in this country, they need to change it. They really need to become whistleblowers in a sense, and get the facts, the truth out. Do you know what I mean? It's all about the truth. You know, the people don't have to. Like, even if it's a just society, there's going to be taxes, but you don't need unlawful taxes where they're ramming down the people's throats. I mean, it's like if you're in business, I mean, commerce will still prevail at the end of the day. You know, you're still going to have a currency system, but you know, not money should be man's. It should be subject. Man should be the master, not money. It's the other way around. We, the people, are the power. Only until we break that. See, the people are the law. We're born lawful. And we just have to act as such so we don't cause harm, loss and injury.
Yeah. I do find that knowing a little bit about the law, as I do, just a little bit, not a lot, but knowing a little bit of what I do know, it's amazing how you can apply it to certain circumstances, and people will look at you, you know, and if anything, maybe gain a little bit of respect, maybe not so much from the people who are further down the food chain, because the workers, you know, I'm not insulting their intelligence, but they're just told to do a job, and that's what they do. But when you actually start applying the law to people higher up who understand it, then they start to begin to kind of wake up to it. And when you explain it to people, I mean, I explained what happened with my estate and the fact that these people have left. Well, hopefully they've left. We'll find out in the morning. In the morning time, if nobody turns up, then we can definitely guarantee they're gone. But I'm pretty sure they're gone anyway, because there was no work carried out for 2 days anyway since Thursday. But when you explain it to people and you break it down to them, they kind of say, well, that makes sense. You know, and whether they learn from it or they just carry on doing what they're doing, because it's all this, there's always this fear, you know, like the bully boy Hogan, the threat that they're going to cut your water flow. I mean, myself and Steve have really looked at this, haven't we, Steve, extensively, and there's no way we can find a way through their system that they're going to restrict the water. And even, as I say, the Independent said they will come after you on the contract debt. So what are they going to do? Are they going to come after you for non-payment on contract debt, or are they going to restrict the water? Because I don't see a way of them being able to do that.
Only if you sign the contract, you know. That's the whole point of this. You need to get the simple guts of this. I recall signing no such contract and work backwards from that.
Okay.
That's pretty much the way it works.
Exactly. We have two more questions.
Rather than go through all their red tape of codes, policy, statutes and acts and allegations and then volunteering to go into the court to have a legal argument with them, which is dishonour in their society, you don't have to do that. You simply just don't have to go to their courts. You know, it's actually uncomplicated, you know, as I explained earlier on.
Well, stick around.
But people need to use the fear, because I mean, years ago, the enemy of the people were soldiers with muskets and bayonets, and then that developed into full-scale armies. And now they have engineered the populace to believe that a piece of paper that comes in through your letterbox is as damning as a bullet, you know?
Yeah.
This is how they've engineered people's brains. Yeah. People are they have taken their own lives because of pieces of paper coming in through the letterboxes on foot of allegations. And that's how powerful the mind is. They have engineered people's minds to believe that the paper that comes through your letterbox is as scary as a bullet.
Okay, Harry, we have 6 minutes left. We have 2 questions. So can we quick fire these questions over to you? Steve.
Right, sure. Okay, well, the last one I have, the very last question is from Snowflake. I have to ask that one because that's kind of an important one. But the other 2 are just 2 more comments from Agent. He says, so anytime we give our name on the birth cert, i.e. to a police officer or policy enforcer or a guard or whatever, we are giving consent by giving a name that the Crown own.
Well, is it the good thing about Ireland is that we can invoke our own language at any time. That's why they have to rob or steal our language, and we can invoke it at any time. It doesn't apply. There are no Mr., Mrs. and Mrs. in Ireland. There is no such title. So they have to implement this legal system, this foreign legal system here as a lawful system, and they need people to comply or contract with that, knowingly or unknowingly or otherwise. Now, if the people, the free men kind of misconstrue the whole thing, I believe, to an extent. They are telling people that you're handing over subject matter jurisdiction if you present a piece, identification. Now, I don't agree with identification and having to carry identification, because I don't. But to simplify, the most difficult thing for people to contend with is when they are travelling on the roads and when they're stopped. That's the biggest thing for people to contend with.
Yeah.
It really is. The rest is easy.
The rest is easy.
This is how they get people to, this is how they have succeeded in putting people under pressure and duress. And if you show them a piece of their paper, see, it's their construct, okay? All you're doing is reflecting that back at them. It's not you. It's their piece of paper.
Okay, Harry, we're going to have to. We've 4 minutes left. A few things that we have to do. I know you've another couple of questions. I just want
one question.
One more question, very quick, Harry. Quick, one line answer for this one, please, if you can.
Yeah, Harry, this is going back to when we were talking about the property tax earlier, and this one is from Snowflake, and she's wondering, what about the revenue putting a lien on your house when you don't pay the property tax? Is that something that you know what about?
Well, if people want to ask simple questions, show me the contract. I recall signing no such contract, so produce it,
No, it goes back to the contract. Okay, Harry, just stay with us there for a minute. We've got 3 minutes left, and we just want to go through a few things. Now, as you know, we have ordered the chocolate from Dr. Rima, which we're still waiting to come in. It's ordered from Chile, so obviously we'll take a photo and stick it on the site and show it to you, and we'll talk about it, and we'll taste it and try it and all that kind of stuff. So we're still waiting for that to come in, and so when it does, we'll let you know. Now, next week, we don't have anything planned for a guest at the moment. Maybe it might be Piers Corbyn next week. We don't know. We'll see how it goes anyway. We'll give him a ring now after the show, and I'll have a quick chat with him. And find out what went on there. But otherwise, that's the plan of attack. I don't know who's on with Vin later on. Do you know who's on with Vin later on?
It's just Vin and himself at the moment. There's no guest lined up.
Okay, maybe Harry might buzz over to Vin and carry on part 2 with the show.
It's been a while since it was on.
Harry, we've got 2 minutes left. Do you want to give us a pointer to your website and all your details so people know where to find you?
Well, we have the We the People one that has to be upgraded and all that kind of thing, and it's only a fraction of the information on it. But people should get talks. The last talk we did was in the Glen of Amal on Tuesday. Great turnout, about 30 people. They all went away with information and pretty much remedies, because I don't expect people to get it all in one, but people are ready and hungry for the information to effect change, and when they get the simple methods on how to do this, they will effect change at their own doorstep. And so this is the importance of putting up notices on the gateway or the driveway and denying any implied right of access. And it doesn't exist here. Implied right of access doesn't exist here.
And take a photo of it that you have the notice up and the date and time on it as well, just in case there's any legal issues. Okay, well, at that time we have to go. Harry, again, thank you very much for coming on. And I'm sure if you have any group of people out there that want to talk, I'm sure Harry would be more than happy to pop up and pop down or wherever you are and educate them to what's going on. I think that's one of the things he said you do, Harry, and myself and Steve as well. For the little bit we know, we're more than happy to do that as well. We've been asked to do that by that chap in Kells, by the way, so we'll organise something. But for myself, Alan James, and Harry as well, have a good week. Stay safe. If there's any news, let us know. Vice versa, if we come across anything, we'll email you. So have a good one, Steve.
Yeah, I'll have a good one too, and thanks for that. Yeah, from myself,
guys, thanks for having us. All right.
All right, just stay there for 1 second, Harry, and we'll talk to you next week.